Is this good?
White landscape.
We just hold hands. That
Porcelain scale. Yeah.
make it hard. All right, we ready?
Charlie XXX.
Well, welcome back to the podcast. I'm Josh Nascimento, and here's my friend. He's been a guest before. It's Aaron Henderson. Welcome back.
Hello.
Yeah. How you? I mean, I've literally spent the last 5 hours with you, but how you doing?
Yeah, this is completely staged. Like we haven't been talking about our lives for the past 5 hours.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I'm super good. How about yourself?
Solid. I mean, I just watched a pretty fantastic animated series, which we'll talk about.
We're going
to
talk about it.
Yeah.
I'm really curious. We haven't really fully unpacked it yet.
Yeah. Mostly on purpose. I mean, we don't like. You try to talk to me about stuff, and I'm just kind of like,
We don't actually talk to each other.
No, not in real life.
No.
Yeah.
It's completely scripted.
Yeah.
As I'm reading off the teleprompter.
Yeah. I am good. How are you?
Yeah, fantastic. So many typos on the teleprompter.
Yeah. So we might as well just get into it because we don't have a whole lot of time. We're trying to make these a little shorter, but I figured we kind of like introduce this almost to the world as well, because a lot of people I feel like haven't heard of this show. I don't really know. But yeah, so it's this show that actually I'll start it with basically. So you were at my birthday. We had like a little dinner. Mm-hmm. This was a couple months ago, and a couple other people, and you and my friend Albert were both telling me to watch Scavenger's Reign, which I had never heard of before. And I was like, cool, looks cool. I think I added it to like my Netflix list. Yeah. But like knowing myself with like television, I'm not great with like, I just don't.
With commitment,
exactly. I have commitment issues.
Right.
Yeah. But you wanted to do this episode, so we got through all of it in like 3 days, I want to say.
Yeah. There's a good chunk. They're not, the episodes are not super long because it's not like a long form piece of content. Yeah. It's also animated, which like typically it can be difficult to like ramp up to something really good, and not that many episodes. There's only 12 in total.
True.
I think each episode's maybe like 25 to 30 minutes.
Yeah.
As opposed to like
really quick
45 or 50 situation. Yeah. But yeah.
Yeah. Freaking yeah. What would you say it's about? Like what's the synopsis? It's kind of hard to describe, huh?
It's a really good question.
Yeah.
Well, essentially, the premise is that you're looking at different perspectives, right? So you're kind of following 3 different stories of these survivors that have crashed on an unknown planet. Yeah. And so a lot of mysterious things ensue. So we're talking about each individual, or you're seeing each individual group's, right, or person's perspectives and what that looks like, and then they kind of, come together at the end, sort of thing, as they all meet in the final episode. Yeah. But yeah, it has a really there's a lot of attention to detail and thinking about what another world looks like. Like they're on this alien planet that you really have no idea what is there, like how they're going to survive, all these different type of things. Yeah. And it's probably one of the most well thought out depictions artistically of what life somewhere else could look like, and like how that would affect humans that are interacting with stuff like that, which I thought was really interesting.
It's not just like you were saying earlier, it's not like there's like red rocks and there's like a Martian. Like it's like there's like a whole like ecosystem of things that like have probably been there for millions of years, and they're just like, this is how we do things, and then humans come into contact with that, and it's like terrifying. Which I should say is part of this. So I was actually explaining it to my coworker earlier today that like I had been watching the show. Yeah. And he was like, oh, like I told him that it was animated, like, and he was like, oh, okay. And you could tell he like wasn't really like trying to, and I was like, how do I explain this to him? And he was like, what did he say? He was like, do they sing in it? I was like, no.
Is it a musical?
Yeah. He was like, is it a musical? I was like, no. It's like an adult.
I just can't do another one of those. I'm sorry.
I was like, no, it's like an adult, like, it's an adult animated show. I didn't know how to explain it because it's not like Rick and Morty or like Family Guy.
Yeah. I think that's kind of that might be one of the issues that it finds itself in, is because there's there's not really a clear category to give it because it's
Yeah.
animated, but it's not like an anime,
It's not
right?
anime,
It's
yeah.
not necessarily action packed to
Yeah.
where there's stuff happening, all the time in that sense. And it's also not one of like the adult cartoon comedies, like a Rick and Morty or um like a Smiling Friends or a BoJack Horseman sort of thing.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's like, where do you put it? I mean, like, yeah, it's a sci-fi story thing, but I don't know. There's also like some extended scenes where there's just like there's not a ton of dialogue,
Yeah.
but it's amazing anyway.
Yeah.
So I feel like it also is a little bit of a sleeper as well. Like
Definitely.
not a lot of people know about it too, just because it's probably not going to show up in like your Netflix like top 10 picks of the week, whatever that they do,
Right.
because it's like, how does it get categorized? Like, what do
Yeah.
people think that it is?
Yeah.
But I also think that's what makes it really good.
It's in the category you'll be horrified, but also like very pleased and emotionally satisfied by the end.
Right. Yeah. What I've been telling people that they're like, so what is it like? I'm like, it is beautiful and deeply unsettling.
Yeah. So that was
That's how I would describe it.
that was a big part of this. Like it was just like the goriest, like nastiest, like for an anime. I feel like for an animated thing, like it was like it wasn't like a lot of like human on human like stabbing each other and like blood guts, but it was just like really gross and like just like there's an episode relatively early on where essentially, so like the big part of this show is like they have to get back to their ship so they can like get out of there, but essentially like they have to adapt to the environment in order to like get there. And so like in order to adapt, they have to be like go into the belly of this like sea creature or something like that and like literally go underwater.
Yeah.
And it's like it's just like this show it's not even like not safe for work, I guess, but it's just like really nasty.
I mean, like, I don't know. I it's not so gory in the sense that it's like, why am I watching this? I think it's on the same level as like if you're watching like a not stripped back version of like a National Geographic like documentary, and it's like, yo, like that zebra just got nommed. Like, you know what I mean?
Nature is wild.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Like that's the kind of like, it's like more unsettling than anything. And I think it's because like
interesting.
the creators of the show like really took a lot of creative liberties in imagining what like ecosystems would look like on another planet and
Yeah.
how certain species interact with each other. And I think like the attention to detail and the creativity that they came up with for those
Yeah.
is like astonishing. And then to put in like a human that's not from there, that's like, okay, how do I observe and also have to interact because this affects me as a
Yeah.
whole too, because they're trying to survive.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, like it makes you reflect on like even the planet that we know and inhabit and love here. And it's
Earth.
like, wait,
Yeah.
Earth is actually kind of wild. Like
Yeah.
if I was like another like life form that just came down to Earth and just like got plopped in the Amazon and was just like looking around,
Yeah.
I'd be like, yo, this place is freaking terrifying.
Yeah.
And so it kind of like inspired a little bit of that. So some of the stuff is like, oh yeah, these creatures eat other creatures, and
Yeah.
then like we have to watch it.
Yeah.
So it's like gory in that sense, but not in
Yeah,
this. Like
you're
I've even seen like animated features that are like not as like belligerently gory. Like
Mhm.
I think, like I don't know if you've seen like Castlevania. So kind of
No.
like
I know about that though.
it's like anime adjacent, I guess. But
Mm.
that's like I think that's a gorier, or
Like-
I wouldn't even say gory. It's graphic, right?
Mm.
For the sake of like violence and
Like shock.
just
Yeah.
being graphic and it's supposed to be somewhat entertaining.
Yeah.
But I do think that with this one, like it's not super duper. I was gonna say it's not super duper violent, but that's definitely not true.
It's very violent.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
violent, but I don't know when that's not really the part of it that makes it unsettling to me necessarily. Like the graphic nature of it in and of itself. I think it's the context around everything that you're just like, where am I?
Yeah.
And I feel deeply uncomfortable about
Yeah.
like what is happening right now.
Yeah, I think the uncomfortability isn't because there's like, it's not because there's like a spurt of blood, because like we've all,
Yeah.
we've all seen TV before, but like it's that like there's, you don't know what these creatures are capable of. So when one of them like puts its like pincer into you and there's like a spurt of blood, it's like, oh, that man might have just died. Like,
Right.
because we don't know.
You're right. What did you could have just injected eggs into him or
Yeah,
something?
exactly.
Like,
Yeah, exactly.
what is that? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think there was definitely, I think especially more early on with the show, I felt like it wasn't, because I was telling you like earlier, I'm really a sucker for like happy endings or like bittersweet, but like
Yeah.
I just, as long as it's not like worse than like, I feel like sometimes if it's like worse than we started, or like if it's like a real like downer, I'm just like, or if it's like, I feel like this doesn't happen super often, but if it's just, if it feels like it just ends and it's like that's the artistic statement, but I'm like, no, but like
But I don't like it.
yeah. Yeah. I think that's always so I think earlier in the show I was like feeling that and I was like, oh, I don't think this is gonna end well.
Watching you experience it was probably the best part from watching it a second time.
Yeah.
You're just like, I don't like this. You're just
Yeah.
like, I don't like this. I
Yeah.
don't like this at all. And I was like, yeah, feel it, Josh.
I did this to you.
That's right.
Yeah. So I think I was noticing, I think earlier on, I was noticing, I was like, oh, I think this is more upsetting. And I think towards the end of the show, I started to like, I think grow more attached to the characters, and I like was noticing their arcs more in like a broad sense. And that was like just very, very satisfying. There's a character in here, his name's Cayman, and he's just like very like, you find out he's like the most selfish person in the entire world.
Everybody hates Cayman.
Yeah.
The motto is just like, bump Cayman.
Yeah.
Like, freaking Cayman.
Yeah.
God dang it.
Yeah.
Hate that guy.
He's I was thinking about this like literally because we literally just finished like watching the season.
Right.
I was thinking it's pretty wild because he's like, he has a character that he's like married to, and like part of the show is like revealing how he like didn't really put her like above himself, and like he was very like selfish in that relationship, and that's why they like broke up or separated or whatever. I think it is interesting to consider that like, I think I used to think that like just because you were married meant that you were automatically like not selfish, or that you had like, I think it's bizarre to me that like, I feel like there's certain people I know who I feel like don't like, they're not kind and they don't have like love inside themselves. Do you know what I'm talking about?
You're like, have you ever met like a terrible person?
Yeah.
I'm like, oh yes.
Yeah, you're like, I can think of a couple, but it's like like even like I'm like, but you're married though. Like I'm like, how do you? It's
right.
weird. You know what I'm talking about?
So like, how can you agree to spend your entire life with another person, like in a close, vulnerable relationship, but still be an awful human?
Yeah,
like I don't
be selfish, and
it's definitely possible.
Yeah,
it's 100%.
Yeah. Turns out people who are married don't have everything figured out, I guess.
Ah, man. If only I knew that beforehand. If only you would have shared that information with me before.
Yeah, that'd have been cool.
Josh.
Well, so you had everything figured out when you got married.
For sure. Also, my marriage is perfect, so.
Got it.
I also don't actually know what you're talking about. Because that's not my day-to-day experience.
You're like, yeah, like I'm talking and you're like, yeah, I don't.
That's such a cool story that I can't relate to.
Yeah. Sounds fictional. I don't.
100%.
Yeah.
No, I think like the investment that you get in some of the characters is a real one. Especially like, well, okay, first of all, I have to ask like,
yes,
now that you've seen the whole entire thing,
yes,
like how do we feel about Levi?
That was maybe the best arc in the entire thing.
So what from start to finish, explain what do you how would you interpret that situation, or how do you feel about it?
Yeah. My question is, do I speak in generalities here, or do I like just go full spoiler?
Oh, that's true. Moment? I don't know whether or not people have actually I don't know. I guess in the best way that you can. I guess do we want to do spoilers?
Let's do a spoiler section. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Let's do it. Spoilers. We'll try to put a time code, and you can skip to the end and we'll kind of sum everything up.
There you go.
Anyway. Yeah, so I was like legitimately like, I feel like the show was like, I feel like with some shows or movies, I feel like if they're not well written enough, or like I'm not engaged enough, I'm like, okay, this is going to be the scene where they do this, and then the thing is going to happen, and this thing happen. And like I felt like they were setting us up on an arc when Levi like got all the like weird plant stuff in it, and like it
Hmm.
was like, oh, is this gonna be helpful? Is this gonna be harmful? And then like the robot got like destroyed, and I was like, well, first of all, I'm devastated, but also like,
Wait,
why?
her robot friend, no.
Yeah, legit. I was like, why? And then like, but then it was also like, I guess they were just kind of setting that up for nothing. I guess like I literally was like, that robot's dead. Like that's what just happened. And then like a couple episodes later, it got like rebuilt with like the life or whatever, like the plant life or whatever. And it was kind of set up to seem like, oh, but it's still not healthy. Like it's still gonna like be out to damage humans. And it's like, and then it's kind of revealed that like, no, actually, like it's not. It's here to help. And it's also like, it's not even like just to help Ozzy, her Levi's companion, like human companion. It's literally just like, no, I mean, like I have like these weird plant like things in my like joints now, but it doesn't mean I'm like not helpful. It's just like, I don't know, you know?
Yeah.
So I think you could see that as like weird and contrived and like, oh, like pull the rug out from under us, but in like an unsatisfying way. I didn't really. I part of it I think is just the writing of the show was so good. But like
Yeah.
I think like the if you go back and look, there's not really much that like would it's not like if you go back and look and you're like, oh, but that was clearly a pointing to like it being evil. And it's like, no, it could really go either way. And it ended up going good, I guess. So yeah.
Yeah. I think like I was talking to like Reese and I were talking about this
Mm,
because he was like, I was a few episodes ahead of him, and so
mm,
I'd finished it before he did,
yeah.
and so then he's like, "Oh my gosh, Levi is like the best character of all time."
It's
Like,
great.
yeah,
Yeah.
and it's like I think the writing was so good. It's their, I don't know, their kind of take and their interpretation on like what personhood and like sentience is like,
Yeah.
right? Because like essentially Levi starts getting like the moss like from the planet. I forget that actual name, but it's
Mm,
based off of an actual, like moss that like grows
uh, okay.
like
Wow.
I'm blanking on what the name is. But it's pretty cool. Like you can see videos of it where it'll like travel through mazes like as it like grows and stuff like that. So they're like,
Wow.
oh, like how does a something that like a plant, right,
Yeah.
like have some sort of resemblance of sentience into it. And
Yeah.
so they kind of take that to an extreme where it's like, oh, okay, so now you have this like sort of like moss like a thing that's like growing inside of Levi, and then interacting with all the circuitry and what have you. So this is
Yeah.
just electromagnetic synapses that are happening in this robot.
Yeah.
And then Levi starts to like have dreams or like start feeling things.
Mm,
You can see like the unease like at first,
yeah.
and but like my favorite part of it,
Mm,
where it was the turning point, I was like, oh, this is kind of intense, is where Levi's like a robot, so he's like, oh, I'm just compliant to like whatever it is that's happening.
yeah.
And so then like Ozzy's like, hey, this seems kind of weird. You're not acting, like you normally would.
Yeah.
And so she's like, I'm just gonna shut you off and like let's just reboot it.
Yeah.
Which like they kind of set up the premise because that was done previously, like when in that first like episode
Yeah.
or second or whatever,
Right.
and it was like not a big deal.
Yeah.
But then like essentially Levi describes death to her, like when it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, I like when you turn me off, like I see nothing and I
Yeah.
feel nothing and I don't like it. And
Yeah.
I was like, okay, we're done. I was like, this is weird. I don't know how I feel
Yeah.
about this anymore. I was
Don't
like,
do that again.
yeah.
Yeah.
He's like, do not do that again. And
Yeah.
yeah, he's like, I think I'm okay. I don't think you need to do that, but sure. So like, you kind of see the journey, and then obviously like after the Levi resurrection, where
Yeah.
Levi's just completely indifferent to like, Ursula is like trying to talk to it as if it's like an old unit. And it's
Yeah.
like
Subservient.
yeah, it's like you just ask a lot of questions.
Yeah.
Like I was just like, dang,
Go
Levi's a
somewhere
real
else.
person.
Yeah.
I thought that was like fantastic. So a journey
Uh,
of a robot's sentience, like merging with organic material,
yeah.
to the point where it's literally like rebuilt. And they have like a really cool line that's in there. It's like, oh, I was born like when
That
she
was
comes back.
crazy. I was
They're
born
like, oh,
here.
like
Yeah.
where, like what happened? He's like, oh, I was born here. And I was
Yeah.
like, yo, that's wild.
Yeah.
I thought that was bonkers. And then little plant Levi's or whatever running around at the end. So
Yeah.
there's this weird plant machine symbiosis thing going on.
Yeah.
And I was like, that is so interesting.
Yeah.
Like what a weird take on that. And I think like it was I think it's an intentional decision that they made to make Levi like as a robot model, not anthropomorphic. Like, well, anthropomorphic
I
in
see
the
what you're
sense that
saying.
she had his arms and legs, but
Yeah.
like it's not a robot that mimics the appearance of a human.
It's not like the creator like androids.
Yeah, like it
Yeah.
doesn't look like an android. It's like, oh, that clearly looks like a robot.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't have,
It's like a Pokemon.
it's like got one giant like pincer claw, like,
Yeah.
whatever, or like the little things from the arcade, whatever. The claw.
Yo.
And they like come down. So it's like, oh, like such a high tech like robot with like this AI mind, but like the body that it has is like kind of like, wait, that doesn't make any sense. Like
Yeah.
it's like top heavy and it has like weird feet that are just like
The feet were so small,
Right?
that I was like, how is it? Like, it was giving me anxiety. I was like, this thing's gonna topple over.
Right.
Like,
I'm like, how is this peak engineering of the future? I was like, explain.
Yeah.
You've mastered interstellar travel, but like your robots look like this?
Yeah,
Like,
maybe
that's
it's like the
dumb.
budget robot. Maybe that's,
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's supposed to be like a cargo robot, right, on the ship or whatever.
Yeah.
And there were multiple of them. But I thought that was just like really fascinating. So that was like that character arc of Levi's character was probably one of the coolest things in
definitely.
the show, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. Do we want to exit spoilers or do we?
Yeah,
have
we
any-
can exit spoilers.
Okay, cool.
We won't talk about it anymore.
Yeah. So do we want to like just kind of final wrap up? Like, what do we? I mean, we don't have a rating system really, so it's just like,
I don't know. What would you give it? Like on a scale of 1 to 10 now that you've actually seen the whole entire thing?
ooh, 8 or 9? Probably an 8.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Your reasoning?
It was really solid and I think part of it dragged them. The reason it dragged in the middle was because we watched like 6 episodes in like a day. And I was
True.
The last one I was like, I'm really tired.
We were cruising through it for a second there.
But it's so consistently interesting and like the character arcs are so fascinating. Like it's very like I think it does all the things that good art, like really good art does, where it's like it makes you think about like technology and humanity and
Nature,
person, everything and like how it tied back to like I thought the arc with Cayman, where it was like this weird like you could tell that it's like he has some growing to do, but he's like maybe recognizing how selfish he is by the end. Just very, very really good show. I would say I would recommend it. I would say if you're like maybe kind of squeamish or like I'd maybe give it like the first 2 episodes like a shot, and then if you're like really not into it,
I think you can if you watch the first 2 episodes, then you're good for the rest of it. Like it's pretty indicative of how the rest of the show.
That's
is
what I'm
in
saying.
that
Yeah.
sense,
Yeah. Like if you're like really not into it, like I don't know, maybe don't, but it's a really solid show. Yeah.
I would, and probably 9, if
9?
not 10 out of 10 for me. I think it was just like, oh wow.
It's
I find myself recommending it to a lot of people. They're like, I'm scrolling through like all of these different pieces of content because Netflix starts to kind of have a formula of like what's on there,
Yeah.
and like what gets
The
really
algorithm.
popular,
Yeah.
And so it's like if you're done watching Love Island and you want to actually feed your brain for a little bit, then I would say give it a go.
Well, so that's the funny thing. I don't know if I would recommend this to people. Like
I
a lot of
definitely would.
people.
I just want to see it wreck them.
Like it did to me.
Like it did to you.
Yeah.
The inner turmoil. I'm just like, no.
Well, because that's how I'd react. Yeah.
Feel it.
Yeah. Well, no, because like I mean, I don't know. Like my artsy friends, I feel like I'd recommend this too. But like the random homies,
The random Joe Schmo.
Yeah, like I'm like I don't want you to judge me after this. Like I don't.
It's like when you recommend the A24 movie to your friend, like no, it's like my favorite movie, and then they watch it and they're like, oh,
What's wrong with you though?
Are you okay?
Yeah.
Or like that's cool.
Yeah.
I'm like, I just like watching the mole. Like that's it.
Yeah.
Like, you're like, this isn't my type of content.
Yeah.
So with that being said, sure, maybe it's not for everybody, but I think artistically, it's one that you should appreciate.
Yeah.
Like, or that you can appreciate. I think it's beautiful.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. Well, yeah, we would definitely recommend that if you want to give the first 2 episodes a shot. They're each like 25 minutes. There's 12 episodes, so it's like a relatively breezy watch. You probably get through it in like a week or 2.
Yeah. But you can pace yourself if you really need to. Just because like it's nice to think about some of the episodes.
Definitely.
It's like if you try to binge it a little too heavily, Like, I think it can kind of, it's kind of when you watch too many episodes of Black Mirror, like back to back, and you're like, all right,
It's all kind of washing over.
yeah,
me
you're like,
now.
I need to take a nap or something like that. But yeah, we'll definitely give it a go.
I would
Really
honestly, yeah. I mean, not like I did. Like, don't do it like I did. And watch 12 episodes in like 4 days or
deeply
whatever.
scarred.
Yeah. But yeah, super solid. Awesome. Does that about wrap it up?
I think so. We don't want to give away too much, so
Yes.
but hopefully that's enough to
Except for the spoiler
entice
section.
you.
but-
Yeah, except for the spoilers. So if you've seen it, be curious to what your thoughts are.
Yeah, I really enjoy reading all the comments. I try to respond to them if I can.
Yeah.
Our finale last season got a bunch of awesome comments, and we appreciate that. And speaking of which, if you could just give us a like or a follow on YouTube, that does kind of push us up in the algorithm, give us to more people. Yeah, feel free to leave a comment because again, I do really like seeing the comments. And I think that like I'm trying to think of like what pushes it up in Spotify, like reviews and stuff.
I don't even know.
Yeah.
Can you favorite it, or you can rate it in Spotify?
I think, you can like follow the podcast on Spotify.
Yeah. Give it a follow.
That was the first time that Michael talked this entire.
Michael hasn't seen
I'm
the
just
show,
here
you
so I
can
won't get fined.
Thanks, Michael.
Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.
See ya.